Folks, we are live. We got Shiv with us today. I'm sure most people are going to know who this guy is. Some may not, but after today, you're going to know who he is and you're going to enjoy the stream. So I'm going to let him kind of give his intro because he could probably do it a lot better than me. So Shiv, take it away, man. Give everyone kind of like your story on how you got into the hobby and kind of what you've progressed into what you're doing now in the hobby.
Fair enough. Hi, I'm not Shivam. Everyone calls me Shiv in the space. I've been in the hobby for 5 years now, a little over 5 years now, and I kind of entered the space in 2019 in terms of being able to produce content. And I basically was watching this space around 2018. I was in my 5th year of college when I was watching this play, watching this entire space. I was watching Gem Mint Pokemon. I was watching Primetime Pokemon. I was watching Super Danny, Real Breaking Nate, Leonhardt, which is kind of crazy to say because like they're not my friends, but really really great people. And from there, like I was just in my college apart in my college room in my townhouse at that time, just thinking like, man, like there's something here, but I don't know what it quite is just yet. And so, uh, after watching for a straight year, just doing as much research as possible in this space because I really wanted to enter this space back in because I really really loved Pokemon as a kid. I stopped doing anything in regards to Pokemon when I got into college. I played all the video games all the way up to the point where I got into college, which was 2013 is when I got into Virginia Tech. And during my last formative years of college, I was majoring as a biology major. And at that time, I was like, man, like I just don't like what I'm doing. I really don't. So towards the end of the year, I was like in the process of dropping out of college and I didn't know how to have that conversation with my parents. And then while doing that and while watching Pokemon, I was day trading crypto at that time. I was doing stuff with Bitcoin. I got really, really lucky with that, thank God. And so I'm from a small town in Virginia, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna drop out, move back home, help the family business out, and because my parents needed my help at that time, and so I moved back home. Ran their business for 5 years with little to no pay. It was just more so covering my normal expenses. I would take some money here and there just to be able to like put money in the gas tank or pay for some meals here and there. But I never really took a check from that. And so in the process, it really forced me to like really step outside of my comfort zones and really explore different things that I wanted to do as far as social media because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something along the lines of social media, but I didn't know quite like what I wanted to do specifically. And so I started collecting back in April of 2019, made a few posts here and there, and I started collecting, and I was like, man, this is starting to get expensive. I started opening up product, and I was like, man, probably the only way to make content in this space is to open up product. So I opened up a few product here and there, and I was like, man, I'm not really making any money in the I wasn't making a return on this. And as a conscientious adult, just moving back home, I'm not making too much money already. I was like, you know what, like maybe I just need to like start spending money on the actual cards that I need. And I noticed this thing back in 2019 where the overall market as a whole was significantly undervalued than what it is today. And what I mean by that is that you could buy first edition Neo Genesis Lugias for $115 at near mint condition that would grade 7 or above. You could buy Plasma Storm Charizards for like $75 at that time at near mint condition at 9 grade quality. You could buy first edition Blaine's Charizards for like $300. Basically, the biggest chases in vintage for no more than 1 or 2 or 3 booster boxes today. And I was like, why is this so undervalued? And why does this cost the same amount as like vintage product today? I mean, modern product today. And so I started just diving back in very, very heavily into that. And once COVID kind of hit in March of 2020, everything that I own just went 5 to 10x as a whole. And in the process of doing that, I was making content on grading submissions because I was doing group based grading submissions at that time. I was going on TikTok when Pokemon TikTok was non-existent. You could go hashtag Pokemon, and the only two people you would see is Real Breaking Nate and this guy named Josh Ridley, which is like this big guy who would paint himself as Jigglypuff or Pikachu and just shout Jigglypuff or Pikachu. And so I got in really, really early at that time. And all of a sudden, March is when things kind of like started popping off as far as my social media goes. Both Instagram and TikTok kind of started booming. And I started doing consultations at that time, actually. And I believe at that time in 2020 as well, I started up the podcast with my former business partner, Pat Flynn started watching my lives before Deep Pocket Monsters even existed. I started giving him advice on collecting before Deep Pocket Monsters existed, which is pretty cool to say. A lot of the biggest individuals in the hobby kind of started watching my podcast at that time because um, there wasn't really any podcast talking about that. You had shout out to Pokemon Radar himself. Was doing this very, very, very high brain, high knowledge, podcast that only talked about, trophy cards. And I thought, hey, cool, that's great. But the vast majority of individuals out there will never ever own or even hold a trophy card. So I was like, let's bring it down a little bit and make it a little bit more relatable. Talk about issues within the space. Talk about collecting. Talk about what's going on in the space because that just didn't exist at that time. So I started getting connected to a lot of different people. I got connected to Jarvis Johnson. Got connected to a lot of huge people in the space that kind of created a lot of validity and credibility to my name at that time, which is what my brand kind of needed at that time. And in the process, while doing that, I was also like I knew all these big collectors and creators, and they were always looking for something that they just can't quite find that's outside of the realm of TCG. And I was always finding that on eBay because it was always on eBay. So I was always sending them links or I was always buying it for them and just sending it out to them and just asking for reimbursement back because I was just on it. So I was basically creating value for these large content creators and big collectors at that time. And it just kind of worked out. It just kind of fell in place because I was just making content around all things Pokemon collectibles, um not just cards. So it just kind of worked out in like a really wonderful fashion. And now I'm working with big brands. Now I make content full time. It's just awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a side of things that a lot of people don't think about is, working with the higher end individuals with the higher net worths who are just looking for specific items. But, the reason they have that net worth is a lot of times they're busy people, right? They're running their own businesses, they're executives, and someone like you who can kind of fill that gap and find the things for them because they don't want to learn how to navigate through all these different sites and auction houses. And they don't have the connections in the space with people that actually own these types of items that can negotiate to get them. There's kind of a gap there. And I feel like you filling that gap is what, kind of needed to be done for them.
Yeah. That's what I did. It's all about being able to create value. That's my biggest thing as a individual because I've been in the business space for a while now. I've been in I come from an Indian family. I'm a first American born to an immigrant here in the United States, and I've understood like the value. My parents made that very very clear growing up, and the way they did that was like we had a motel at that time, and every summer they would make me go out, sweep up cigarette butts in the parking lot. And so as an 11-year-old, it's like you learn very, very early on, like what the value of the dollar is. And yeah, I just always kept that business minded aspect when it came to content creation, whether it's that or the high end deals that I kind of broker or the consignments that I do or working with major auction houses or anything of the sort today. So it's been very, very beneficial and fruitful in that regard.
So you had the podcast on YouTube, I'm assuming. And so since then, you've really transitioned into more like Instagram, short form, TikTok, shorts content.
Yeah. I mean, like when I first came into the content space, the one hesitance was always YouTube because I don't know how to make a thumbnail. To this day, I still don't know how to make a thumbnail. The only thing that's gotten better is my editing skills because I've taken like a lot of master courses in the last 2 years in editing through Adobe Premiere. So it's mostly been short form content. It's what I excel at. I understand retention really, really well. I understand what people are looking for as far as the short form game goes. And at the end of the day, like I'm in people's faces more often than a lot of than some YouTubers that are far smaller than me. Like the channel that I have is at like what I think it's like 6,500 subscribers, but like there's other individuals who've been doing YouTube far longer than I have that can't break 3,000 subs or anything of the sort. And that's no hate to them. It's just more so that I'm in people's faces more often. And I think in this world of short attention spans, I think it's kind of important to be multifaceted, whether it's having some presence on YouTube, having some presence on TikTok, having presence on Facebook, as well as Instagram as a whole, even LinkedIn. That a lot of people sleep on that. So I'm kind of just everywhere at this point, and yeah, like I just do the things that I'm great at, and then with the things that I'm not so great at, I take that day by day and try to learn something here and there about it. And so it's pretty good. It's I'm at a decent spot right now. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, we talked a little bit before before the live. Is that I think that's one of my things I need to really work on is getting out there, getting my face in front of people more on all these different platforms, and also like we talked about, the value of kind of getting outside the Pokemon space alone, right, and knowing what's going on in other like spaces that kind of get grouped together from time to time, because I feel like a lot of people fall into that. Me myself included, is you fall into this like Pokemon bubble or this Pokemon market or investing or like podcasts, whatever it is, everyone kind of falls into that bubble, and it can hold you back and it limits you to just not just like the people viewing your content, but it kind of limits the relationships you can make and
Of course.
the partnerships you can make and things like that. I think like limiting yourself is the biggest issue.
Yeah, I agree with that. Limiting yourself is only it's gonna prevent a lot of opportunities from taking place. There's a lot of opportunities. A lot of the conversations that I see happening on YouTube. I mean, nothing really is there's a lot. I would say that based on my connections and my conversations with even high profile individuals, it would shake, a lot of people's opinions or thoughts or change the way people think about this hobby, considering what I know now. Like it's kind of crazy. But that's not going to come to surface anytime soon just because of the nature of things and how private some individuals are. But yeah, I think being versatile is like the biggest thing you could possibly have in this space. Like I, for example, part of the reason why I entered the Pokemon space is because I was watching the sports card space for a long, long time. And the reason why is because the sports card space has 120 years of data to look back on. And it's the only reason why Pokemon.
Shiv, we lost you, man. Guys, we lost Shiv. Hey, man, if you can hear me, try to like log off, rejoin. I don't know how we lost you. But while he's correcting that, yeah, a lot of you guys probably know him if you've seen him before. I mean, that's why I've seen him. He actually works a lot with Collecticon, does a lot of the interviews with the voice actors up on stage and everything. And I've seen him at multiple Collecticons, and I was finally able to get a chance to talk with him at at the trade night at Kansas City, and that's how we ended up being here today. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's one of those things like we were just talking about like branching out. Like, guys, don't be afraid to reach out to people, talk to people, and build those relationships. Because you kind of never know where things will lead. You never know what you're going to enjoy either, right? Like, if you're too like locked into what you're doing in the Pokemon space or what you're doing in your business space, or the market, you're too locked into one thing. You might miss out on trying new things, and you might end up liking some of the new things more than the things you were doing, which can, your direction in life can always change. He's back. He's back.
Dude, I'm out in the forgive me, Chad. I'm out in the boonies, man. I got that McDonald's Wi-Fi, and sometimes it happens. So,
no, I was telling him, I was like, because I've seen you at multiple Collecticons, and I finally got a chance to actually talk with you at this one. What's your whole relationship with Collecticon? I mean, I know you interview, all the voice actors up on stage. You're all access. You're back behind the scenes doing stuff. What exactly are you doing with Collecticon these days?
So Collecticon, I started working with Collecticon early on. Right at their second show. So technically it's their first show. Their first show was called PokeCon, but they had to change their name to Collecticon. So I was at their first Collecticon in Frisco, Texas. And I had my former business partner at that time go to the first show. So I was already in talks with Collecticon, spoke to them, and saw that there was a huge opportunity here. Again, didn't quite know what it was, but saw a huge opportunity to be able to like network, be able to make content, and provide value. That's like the biggest thing. Because if you're in business, you kind of know that when you start a business, the biggest thing is that when you start a business, the first 3 years you're just not going to be profitable. So I just said, you know what, I'm just going to take everything seriously. I'm going to take every opportunity possible and just not say no. And within reason, I don't want to overextend myself. So started working with them, and at that time it was still limited to just Texas. So the first 2 shows were in Frisco, and then after that there was a last show towards that year in Houston. And once Houston popped off, it kind of brought in big investors into the show to where we started doing this whole national circuit in 2022. And things just kind of went really, really well from that point on. And once we started at that in 2022, I proposed the idea of panels back in 2022, and I kind of started the whole panels around that whole thing, and I started taking care of that. And then,
Oh, so you
um,
started the interviewing all the guests on stage.
yeah. I proposed
Damn.
that back in 2021, going into 2022, and I said like, hey, we're underutilizing voice actors, and started that whole thing as a whole. Brought in, that first show that we did where I was in charge of panels as a whole. I brought in Goat Breakers, who was already working with Collecticon as well, and Dr. Applesauce at that time. So all three of us were already going to these shows already. Dr. Applesauce is local to Texas, so makes sense. And Tim was already coming, aka Goat Breakers was already going. So it was one of those things where it just worked out wonderfully well. And since then, I also took on the extra role of being able to do PR for Collecticon. So at that time, they were interested in bringing in other creators in the collectible space, like Rev, because they knew that I had a connection with Rev, as well as like Rhyme Style. I have a great connection with Rhyme Style. I'm friends with Rhyme Style. And, I would try and say, like, hey guys, like, I'm speaking on behalf of Collecticon. We want to fly you out first class, make sure your hotels are taken care of, yada, yada, yada. And they just kind of weren't interested. It was still towards the tail end of COVID, and some people were pretty, kind of afraid to kind of go out. They were still anxious to go out at that time, still rightfully so. And Rev is just Rev, man. Like he doesn't need to leave to go anywhere. He's just printing on everything. He was still printing then, so um, yeah. I mean, it just kind of worked out wonderfully well. We took everything by the mantle, and since then, I've been reaching out to a bunch of different individuals like Cassius Marsh to come out to Collecticon, and whoever it might be. I'm still doing that right now. I'm in the process of trying to bring Kai Sanat as well as Phantom from AMP to Atlanta Collecticon. So that's still in the works. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it'd be really, really cool if that happened. I brought on my best friend, Caleb X Swag, to Collecticon. He's now being taken care of by Collecticon. And like he just brought Bear Walker to Collecticon at his first Collecticon. And so that was awesome. So we're just doing a bunch of different stuff. We've seen everything that can be done in the collectible space. So we're just trying to do something outside that realm, or trying to do something completely different that most people just haven't seen in the collectible space yet.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, innovation is it's needed. I mean, I don't know how much you pay attention to like, the content side on the YouTube still, but I mean, I've been talking to people privately about it. Like it's definitely getting stale these days, right? Like, everything feels like it's been done. Right? You have your pack breakers, right? You have your market content, you have your investing content, you have your, whatever, but it just seems like there's a whole lot of channels doing the exact same thing in each sphere. And it definitely needs something fresh. And I've been racking my brain trying to come up with it, and I haven't been able to. So I'm happy you guys are branching out with Collecticon, trying to come up with fresh things, because the space definitely needs something fresh to keep things going.
Right. I mean, like back in the day, back in 2019 and 2020, like I just remember distinctively how pack breaking was the only form of content that really existed. There was probably almost little to no investment style content. Like it became a thing, in the lead up to the boom and after the boom. And so it was so new to this space. And that's when things were really, really hot. And, I still pay attention to what happens on YouTube. I still keep tabs on it. Like I remember, watching you on stream with OK J Love, and that whole stream with, Pokemon investing versus collecting. And, I had my opinions on the matter, and, but I don't really talk about my opinions too often. I just keep everything about collecting nowadays, and why certain cards are expensive, because it's purely because of the story that they have. And so things do get stale, but that's why like it's important to innovate. It's important to kind of do different things as a whole, because if things are getting stale for you, then maybe to your audience you're coming off as stale, or maybe to someone else you're coming off stale. So it's important to kind of do different things all the time, because if you feel it, then your audience is going to see that. And that's sort of like what it's been. It's been all about innovation. Like when I first came into this space, it was all about pack breaking, right? Well, I told myself right from the jump, once I started taking content seriously, that I was going to make myself into a brand and a name without having to break packs, and I was able to do that. And so it's ever evolving space, but it's very challenging in the collectible space, specifically Pokemon, because there's only so many things you can do. So that's
Yeah.
the toughest thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've been making a conscious effort to do is, there's definitely people I like to watch their content, but I've been making a conscious effort to try to actually watch less content because it kind of like influences you less on what you do. So that way you're not like copying, or you're not like almost like catering your content to be either like someone or
Yeah.
unlike someone else. And so I've really been trying to make a conscious effort to make it more original. But even
Yeah.
then, like you said, it's just like as original as you can be when it comes to investing market style collecting content. There's
Mhm.
only so much that can be said, especially if you're trying to keep up with this, like, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 videos a week type thing.
Mhm.
You almost have to branch out to keep it fresh.
100%. You have to. It's important to take inspiration from other industries as a whole to make it a little bit more viable for yourself to keep things fresh. And that's sort of the reason why I travel as well. It's why I don't only limit myself to only content creation. I broker deals. I do high end consignments. I do all these different things to keep things fresh because burnout is a thing. And if you consistently do the same thing every single day, then it's going to happen. I don't do the same thing every single day. It's always something different. It's always different conversations. It's always something that's relatively new to the space that I'm currently working on or planning to work on that I think that the space would actually like. And so that's something that is always in conversation right now.
That's a perfect segue into that. Let's get into some of the stories, man. Let's hear about some of the big stories you have with these deals. I mean, because you're flying all over the world. I mean, you're dealing
Mhm.
with people all over the world, like not just the US or North America.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know. I think people kind of know, like, kind of know it goes down. Like everyone knows it's not all about like the modern single selling on TCG Player and everyone grading them right out of the gate and selling and flipping them on eBay. I mean, I think people know there's those individuals who have hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to spend on a specific collectible and they're done. They're just, they're always kind of this like mythological thing happening out and, out somewhere, and, no one really talks
Yeah.
about it much. So yeah, man, I'd love to hear just some of the big high end stories that you have.
I mean, like, I will preface this by saying that like this is the first time I've been on live since like 2022 on YouTube. So a lot has changed. A lot has tremendously changed, especially if you've been following along what I do. Most people had a lot more access in terms of what I was doing on a week to week back then. So it's so much more different now. Like I'm very, very private in regards to the private dealings that I do. And sometimes I'm allowed to talk about it, sometimes I'm not allowed to talk about it. Um, but I'm more than happy to talk about a lot of the deals that I've done up to this point. One of them being probably my most notable feat would probably be in 2022, working with the 1952 Mickey Mantle that I helped sell with Heritage at $12.6 million. I think that's like one of my biggest highlights of all time. To this day, it's still, so surreal because I live in a very, very small area that was hit with a lot of employment after a lot of the manufacturing facilities just left. And, holding on to something that's sold for that much itself and just seeing the real estate that's just down my street alone, it's like, man, it's kind of crazy to really see how many houses like this one card can really buy. It could probably buy out an entire street, honestly. And so
Oh,
I just
absolutely. Well, here, break it down though. Okay, so obviously taking any names or any type of particulars out of it. Like, so how does that process start and happen? How's that process flow from them reaching out to you, reach out to them or whatever, to the point where it finally sells? Like, take us through that process.
so I mostly work in the informational, like I like to tell people, I like to tell even girls that I'm going out on dates with, because sometimes when you tell chicks that you collect Pokemon, it kind of turns them off a little bit. So I just say like, look, I make informational educational content around collectibles and why they're a viable investable option in the alternative asset class. And
I'm
so
gonna use
typically
that.
speaking,
Thanks.
yeah, dude, it works. It prints, dude. But basically when my work was more so geared towards that at that point, I had a variety of different auction houses. I still work with these different auction houses to this day. They reach out. I worked with them before. They find me as a viable option to produce content around. We go through these different conversations leading up to whatever specific event. I'm at that event and we schedule a time and a slot where I'm able to work with that particular product, not just like take a video of it in the case. I'm actually holding on to it. I'm having conversations about it, what's it at on auction at that given moment. It sold that same weekend I worked with it. And so it worked out wonderfully well as far as that goes. I don't know who it went to. That's the question. But the craziest thing is that literally like maybe 500 feet away at PSA's booth, there was the PSA 10 Mickey Mantle, which everyone was talking about at the show, that we all estimated like the market value at like $30 million. And I was like, bro, that's actually crazy. So like being able to go to these different shows really opens people's eyes up. There's a lot of people in the Pokemon hobby that have never gone to a singular show, and I would highly implore everyone to go to a show because you really do get to see this. Like it's something that the vast majority of people just do not see. And so having exposure to that is so important because it really puts things into perspective. But that's one of the that's one of the biggest things I've got to deal with. Just being in conversations with a lot of these other individuals that I'm friends with that do these massive dealings with is just insane. Like,
I mean, because like a lot of times everyone hears about like you know, oh well, all these cards will be done in private deals. They'll never see the market, or they'll never see auction houses. So like, take us through some of that, like those behind the scenes deals where you know you're just like you know one individual and you know the other individual. Someone's looking for a card, someone else has the card, and it's your job to basically negotiate that person out of their card and get it for this person for a margin. Like, how's the whole thing start?
it just starts off well. Basically, I would say that I'm one of the very few people in the content space where people feel like it's okay to reach out to me solely because I've built a following, and I leverage that in everything that I do. And so when people see that, as well as me being involved with high end sales from the very jump, or dealing with high end cards from the very jump, it's always been a process, and it's always been part of my brand. And so people feel trusting right off the jump, and they understand my process when it comes to these big deals that I do broker. And so what I mean by that is that I'll have a big content creator, like a really big content creator who's not doing these big sales or anything of the sort, but doesn't want to be public about anything that they're trying to sell, because sometimes some people don't like the idea that these individuals are selling parts of their collectibles. Some people are hobby purists in the sense of, oh, you have this, you shouldn't be caring about money whatsoever, yada yada yada. And so they'll come reach out to me.
Which is
I will
insane.
Yeah. And so what I'll do is that I will have that box, or I'll have a really big box, anywhere between the low five figures, high five figures, sometimes even six figures. And they'll all reach out to me, and I will then go through my network that I've established and built up, saying that, hey, do you know anyone that's looking for this XYZ things? Or I'll make it public that I have access to this particular product and I'm selling it at this particular price. And from there, it's just more so negotiations, making sure that my client is getting what they want out of it. I get my consignment fee out of it, and then the person who's buying the object gets whatever they're wanting at a pretty quick pace. So that's typically how it goes. Like, I just did a deal where I have a client of mine who had two boxes that they needed to offload, and they've been consistently sending me boxes on a regular basis. And so they gave me a Skyridge and Aquapolis box, and I'm very aware of actual market value, but oftentimes you're dealing with other buyers who are in the business space who are trying to essentially sell these different products, who are essentially trying to run a business or break these different items as a whole. And so like I have to go through those routes as well. And so my price points are completely different as a whole, as far as that goes. So like, I ended up selling both those boxes at $80,000 total, and I got my 7% on that. And then the person who got the boxes, they're very content with it. Actually, they're so content with it that they're wanting me to help produce content around those particular boxes, which I've already done with them before, but they want me to make more content as is. So it's a whole slew of stuff that's like going on at all times. And I always have people reaching out, whether it's from Singapore or Vancouver or here in the States. It's usually just that. Yeah. Or I'll have like people from Vancouver calling me saying that, hey, Shiv, like, what do you think about this Pikachu Illustrator sale? Like, do you think I should hop on it? Do you think I should not hop on it? Do you think I should do this? Like, I get a lot of like consultation based conversations as well. But I don't really charge those people at all, just because I consider them friends.
So they're not reaching out to you trying to sell a Moonbryon.
No, I stay away from that. Moonbryons are like my kryptonite, dude. If you show me a Moonbryon or like you're trying to talk to me about a Moonbryon and why it's valuable, I'm dipping out of the conversation, man. It's like an 11,000 pop card. Like I don't care for that. If everyone and their aunt and uncle has it, and everyone is talking about how expensive it's gonna get, to me, that's signaling every sign for me to sell. Like and that's like coming from a space of like being well versed in the crypto space as well. Like if my aunt and uncle, or if I see it on Facebook, someone's talking about like Dogecoin, it's a time for me to sell, dude. So um, I'm not saying that Moonbryons. I'm not trying to drag the Moonbryon itself. It's a great card. I just don't think it should be quite as expensive as it should be. That's just my opinion. And I will say this: there's a ton on the market. It's always going to exist. Like
Mhm.
when the population for the Moonbryon in a PSA 10 is the equivalent to almost the entire population for a limited base at Charizards. That's saying something. That's saying something. So that's just my hot take. That's my opinion. I know we got a little bit off tangent, but yeah.
Oh, you're good. You're good. No, that's why this is fun.
Yeah.
So okay, obviously everyone's heard stories, but you've been able to meet with a lot of high-end individuals. Have other than like pictures or stories about it, have you actually seen any of these gigantic Pokemon stashes that we hear about, like these warehouses full of these like cases and cases of like boxes and things, or
They exist. They exist.
they exist? Have you
They
seen them
exist.
with your eyes?
I haven't seen them, but one of my clients that consistently sends me boxes, I have on Excel sheet right now of every box from first edition Shadowless all the way up to the most modern set in multiples, not like 30, 40, 50, whatever it might be, but literally $20 million worth of boxes. And if that's just one individual, then there's many more so like that. So it's not even that. It's they're individuals out there. And if other people are saying that there's warehouses of it, they exist. If people are saying that they have pallets of modern, they probably exist.
So when you say 20 million, I mean these people have like cases of each set from going all the way back to base?
Probably, yeah. Dude, I like there's people out there in Missouri, there's people out there in
Hey, that's where I live.
Arizona. Yeah, you're around one card shop that does have that. Yeah. That has had or does have an extensive inventory of boxes.
What
Um
card shop is that?
I'm not gonna say. I won't say. I won't say. But they've been in the hobby for a long, long time. Um, and there's other individuals that are like that as well. So it's insane. It's actually insane. And I'm not a modern hater. I like my favorite modern card is the Northern Altart. It looks like Batman. It's my favorite modern Altart. But yes, yeah, the person in the chat said it. Sounds like cash. Yeah, it is collector's cash. Um, but yeah, no, I don't hate on modern, but I do disagree with the 11K doesn't matter when 100,000
Well, I
people
think
want
I
it.
think Collector's Cash is in Kansas.
Yeah, well, it's close in that general area.
Um,
No pictures, never seen.
but yeah, Collector's Cash
I
has
don't,
a.
I don't have to. The thing is that when people say like, "Oh, you haven't seen it," so they're probably lying to you. No, I'm so well connected at this point now that there is no reason for a lot of these individuals to lie to me because they're coming out to me to sell these items.
Yeah.
They have no reason to reach out to me, or lie to me.
What's your stance on like Pokemon and like investing as a whole, right? Like, do you hold on to anything in terms of investment, or is it all just kind of like in and out, churn and burn type thing? Do you hold on to anything long term?
No, I'm not a flipper, but I will say that like I have a case here of cards and I will sell those before I sell any of the items that you see in this background. I'm a hobby pure I'm a collector at the end of the day. And but I also do see myself as an investor. And so there are cards that I will hold on to that I do believe that are extremely undervalued. There are tons of cards that I do have. There's tons of these items that I do have here that I do see as an investment as well. Um, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything wrong with being an investor in this space, right? I think at the end of the day, being an investor just means that you're also a collector. You really do believe that this is a viable space. You love like you have a cereal box right there, right? We were just talking about this, right?
Oh,
And that's
yeah,
not your cereal.
N64, yeah.
Well, no, your cereal box. Your cereal box.
Oh,
that
the
you have.
cereal box, yeah, yeah.
Right. a lot of people, they don't know the actual market value on that cereal box, but it's considered it as an investment. The market value is currently $150 for that cereal box factory sealed. At peak, that cereal box was selling for $300, and in 2019, you could buy these boxes for $50 to $75. So it's a collectible. At the end of the day, all of this has meaning and value solely because we have immense passion and love for this. So I'm a collector. I'm an investor. I don't really see myself as a flipper because I hit like 20 shows a year and I don't sell anything, yet alone buy anything. So
Do you even run like an eBay or TCG Player Store or nothing?
I have an eBay account, but I don't really sell anything on there too often. Most like I don't really see a need to sell on eBay. I use eBay as an advertisement aspect of it, of like what I have. Like I'll put something there for like a stupid amount of money, just to have like people see it, but I won't sell it for anything of the sort. Um, but yeah, no, like there's a lot of people in the chat are like talking about videos or pictures. It's more so in respect to the actual owners, right? So like just at card party, there was a deal that was taking place with a friend of mine, and they were going through these cards, and I'm talking about a high figure thing. And these were alpha test cards for Japanese base set, and it was an entire deck. I'm talking about this thick that he was just flipping through, and I videoed that entire deck as a whole. But the Japanese owner was like, please do not put it on your socials. I have a lot of respect for Japanese people, and often at times, a lot of people don't want to have that level of respect. I do, because I one day want to have I do want to own a Shikishi of a Pokemon card, of a Pokemon. My goal is to have a Shadow Lugia from James Turner. That's the goal. But like, it's important to maintain relationships, so you have to be respectful, mindful of someone else's wishes. Like, it's why, like, just this weekend when I showed my first appearance Lugia, for example, right here, a lot of people were like, right off the bat, they were like, Shiv, is it okay if I take a picture of it? It's important to ask. It's important to have manners. It's important to display that to people. So like, it's just that. Like, I'll have these conversations, but a lot of these individuals who are working with me, there's no reason for them to lie to me. Some of them are really, really old, and they want to go through me eventually to sell off some of their stuff because they trust me. They know that I'm not going to do them dirty. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to do other people dirty over $200,000 in terms of a booster box. They're willing to cut them out on that, or lie to their client in regards to what offer, what box that they got it at, just to be able to get a higher cut on the commission. So I'm not like that. It's one of those things that I think is just super imperative as far as that goes. But yes, to go back to your original question, there are these spots that do exist. There's a guy that shows up at almost every Collecticon. He's an older gentleman, and he has a pretty extensive collection. If you want to talk to him, you can find him and talk to him. I won't say who he is, but yes, there are whales that exist, guys. There are whales that exist.
Well, let's kind of bring the conversation back to Collecticon a little bit. So obviously you're not, a flipper, you don't really vend, but you've had the opportunity to talk to, I don't know, thousands of vendors at this point over the course of years of at Collecticons. So, I mean, what are the conversations you have with them? Like, what do you hear from the vendors about Collecticons and live shows in general, how they're doing? It's just anything and everything that you've taken in. Like, what kind of advice do you have for any of the vending side of stuff?
Yeah. By the way, someone mentioned King Gary. Gary is a publicly known whale in the hobby. So,
and he doesn't really bring his stuff with him, though.
No, he has that in bunker. He has that in a bunker. Like, he probably has that in a bunker. I'd like to go out there and make a video at some point, but like, I don't think anyone is getting close to it. But I mean, like, he's an individual that has 13 PSA 10 Pikachu illustrators. I mean, not Pikachu illustrators, first edition Shadow Charizards. He's an individual that has graded a little over 50% of every PSA 10 first edition Shadow Charizard. So, like, yeah, like, he's gonna have.
And those are public. I mean, he's public videos about that. I think even recently he was posting his PSA submissions he used to make back when they were like one certs and things. So that's public.
I have videos with him that I'm still editing right now that talk about his collection and why he's known as King Gary. It's not because of Pawn Stars. It's literally because he's kind of responsible for the market that we're in today, or at least 50% of it. But this is someone else completely. Yeah. But to go to your question, the overall sentiment is pretty positive. Like, vendors are doing great. These buyers are doing great. Like, a lot of these vendors are crushing it because they're having crazy collections come up to their booth and they're able to buy it. I mean, like, a great example is Bulbasaur, right? He's he's an individual that we've seen come out of completely nowhere to a massive account on YouTube as well as socials, just because he's doing these flipping things. Like when you become a public individual, people are becoming more trusting at that level. And yeah, the overall sentiment is pretty positive for the most part. Now, sometimes some people will go through different shows and they'll say like, "Oh, this show didn't do too great," but like these are individuals that are going to shows every weekend. Like these are
Well, here's
people
the
that are
other
going
thing,
to
right?
shows.
Like me, you
Yeah.
talked about it is so. I mean, I'm in a couple like groups or whatever that of people that vend and things,
Mhm.
and no one ever wants to come to Kansas City. Now, maybe you were just talking. Kansas City's actually a pretty decent show as far as how everyone usually does there. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So like a lot of like these big vendors that don't go to like Charlotte or don't go to Kansas City Collecticon. A good friend of mine. I'm 29 by the way, guys. A good friend of mine is Ken Lee, aka the Pokemon Network. We've been in the hobby together. We've been working together since the very jump. Since he was a small account, since I was a small account, we're really great friends. He doesn't go to Charlotte Collecticon or even Kansas City Collecticon, and I'm like, bro, why? You're literally missing out on so much business, but it gives a lot of these vendors a lot of breathing room because it's less competition also. So like that show does well for vendors. This one was a one-off scenario just because there was a giant barbecue festival going on Sunday. So a lot of the people came on Saturday instead of going in on Sunday. The overall sentiment from the voice actors is actually awesome because of the fact that um, a ton of people came in. Voice actors are happy about that. Charlotte is also great as well. So, um, typically speaking, Charlotte is a great show as well. So small shows are great. Vendors are usually happy at these Collecticons.
Which
It's
usually the
what
top show is it one of the Texas ones?
Texas does great too. We have 4 Texas shows, so it's different. So we went from having the first year Collecticon started doing stuff, it was 3 shows, and then when we went national, 6 shows. Last year was 7. This year's 12. And so like with that in mind, it's one of those things where like a lot of shows start blending in with each other. A lot of these shows start happening week after week after week. Like I'm literally at home for like 6 more days and then I'm off to LA. I have 20 shows a year now. So like it's not just Collecticon. There's always the front row card show. There's always TCG Topia in Arizona. There is also Burbank. There's there's so many, like, actually there's so many shows that are happening in New Jersey every single weekend. It's not even funny. So these shows happen so often, so that way like a lot of these like vendors, they'll say like, oh yeah, like this show didn't go too well, but they're cost averaging themselves by having really great shows right after, or they're having way more great shows than there are less horrible shows. So again, a lot of these guys, they would not be vending, and a lot of these conventions would not be selling out if the overall market sentiment was negative. If there was negative shows where the economy was really bad in the Pokemon landscape, then it would be very apparent at this point. But it's still going really solid. These conventions are being booked out like 3-4 months in advance. So that's just the overall sentiment so far.
Yeah. One of the weird things I noticed that this show, and I've noticed it at other shows too, as far as like product availability. And I don't know if, you might not deal with like stuff as low value as like, Sun and Moon XY stuff. But I've really noticed like Sun and Moon XY, Black and White, even some other later mid-era stuff. It's way less available than even like WotC era stuff or modern stuff. Like I did not see a lot of sealed product when it comes to like more of the middle eras. As I did for even things like, base, jungle, fossil, the gyms, rockets. Like it does seem like I don't know if there's just less out there or if people are just holding on to it or if it's not as good of a seller so they don't bring it. I mean, have you noticed that at all or or is it just me seeing that?
I think Kansas City is just not a great example. Kansas City just did not have as many boxes as it typically does. Like let's say Orlando or LA/Long Beach, or Texas. So it's one of those things where like you'll see a lot of those boxes there. But also we have to remember that the vast majority of these boxes are just stashed away, man. Like people don't care. Like if you're in a really wealthy position to have these boxes and you just don't care about selling anything anytime soon, then you're just gonna be sitting on stuff for a while. You're just stonking on it. Like, dude, I have cards that are sitting in my case right now that have been sitting in my case for the last 3.5 years that I've been in zero rush with in terms of grading. I have cards that I have in my collection that I don't feel like selling anytime soon, but I bring it to every show because like maybe there's that one-off chance I might be able to like do a deal where I can, sneakily get away with getting a snap card. But yeah, there's a question in chat saying how has the consumer base changed since my first con to now? I would say there are more people now that are spending more money now. A lot of these guys, what a lot of people don't understand is that when you look at Comic Con or you take a step out and you look at the National, for example, the National is the National Sports Collectors Convention that happens every single year. It's the largest card trade show every single year. And a lot of those guys that have these tables, they have tenure to these tables. The only way they lose these tables is if they die. So when people are buying out these tables at Collecticon, it's so beneficial for them because they're getting so much more in return. They're getting so much inventory in return. Like literally one of my close friends of mine had a table at I want to say LA Collecticon, I believe, and someone walked in an Alpha Black Lotus and sold it to them at their booth. Like these are things that are showing up. People and mind you, a good example is Bulbasaur. He didn't start from nowhere, but these shows, but was able to scale out to the way he is because of these conventions. People are spending more. A lot of these vendors are spending more money. They're growing, and because of that, they're only growing because more people are either selling more to them, and they themselves are selling more. So it's just one of those things to where, um, they're pretty much doing really well. There's a lot of huge collections that are coming through, a lot of stuff that's happening, a lot of things that are taking place that are happening on a regular basis that's working out. Yeah.
Yeah, guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat. We'll start taking the questions too. If you had anything you wanted us to answer. No, that's pretty wild to think about though. That like, most of this product just isn't going to make it to the market. I mean, and even if they're that wealthy too, odds are their family's going to be wealthy. Odds are their family won't have any reason to sell.
Oh, it's not even that, man. There's huge crypto whales that are in this space now that are taking place right now. So a good example is this. So one of my friends, we became friends in Houston. He's been watching my content for a while, but he's a co-founder of CoinMarketCap that was acquired by Binance. So if those of you guys who are out there, who understand the crypto space, you know how massive that is. And I was like, you know what, bro? Like, I think you're lying to me. Like, this guy has like an actual CoinMarketCap tattoo on his hands. I was like, can you like prove to me that you're like legitimate? He legit shows me a video of him while he's eating that tattoo, and then he shows it off to the founder of Binance. I'm like, bro, this is actually insane. And that same weekend in Houston, he bought himself a Pikachu Illustrator. That same weekend, I have a lot of people who this video went kind of viral. It's of the Black Label Ancient Mew that it said was for $15,000. A lot of people said, oh, it's not worth that much. But guess what? He bought that $15,000 Black Label Ancient Mew. These guys are out there, guys. And so,
well, also, I mean, I remember seeing a Rudy Alpha Investments old video where Vlad, the creator of Robinhood, was at a Magic event. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, we're getting to that point now where, there people our age, like, 20s, 30s, 40s, they're all going to be in these positions of power. They're entrepreneurs, they're executives, they're CEOs, whatever it is. And guess what? They still like the same things that we do. It's just that they have more money. And I think that's what people are kind of not realizing is there's going to be a lot more money coming into the space just because incomes are going to go up.
Correct. I mean, like, also, there's a great question to hear with big cards. Do you ever worry it's too niche and won't sell? No, the only reason why these cards are so expensive is because of the liquidity that they have, right? It's easy to move that. It's easy to do 1-for-1 trades. There are people out there that are able to, I have a friend of mine that literally got a house, a log cabin through Pokemon. So it's one of those things. And plus we're inching day by day to the fine arts category. We're inching day by day to that. What I mean by that is that there are paintings that sell for 50, 60, $100 million, and we're inching day by day to that. And a good example is, and the reason why the Mickey Mantle sale was so important was because it was the first time ever that a trading card sold for, eight figures? Yeah, 8 figures for the first time ever. And so that happening is just massively, massively crazy. And we're inching day by day to that. And, with the advancements of even these auction houses where, eBay acquired Golden, and how Fanatics acquired PWCC, and how they're rebranding to Fanatics Collect, and how they just announced their partnership with Sotheby's. Like, this is huge. It's only going to open the door more to bigger whales. And yeah, sure, like there's not going to be as much movement on these massive cards. Like they're not going to double in price point, maybe. However, they have a better store of value than, let's say, a modern card that comes out, tomorrow. So it's just all about risk assessment and what you're willing to invest in. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, guys, like niche is like a broad term. I mean, like a Pikachu illustrator isn't niche, right? Like some of the things he's talking about isn't really niche. Like, sure, if you go find some random hollow from mid-era somewhere of a Pokemon that no one really likes, you're probably gonna have a harder time moving that than like a crystal, Lugia or something. It's like, so yeah, take it with a grain of sand. Like, not everything is just always gonna be liquid, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the main hits, the main attractions, like those are gonna be traded hands for sure.
right. And to add to lastly add on that, right? Like the biggest thing is that every market is cyclical. Every market cycle is cyclical. So, like, for example, if I put in $200,000 on the first edition Shadowless Charizard, we've seen sales go up to $440,000 at peak. So I'm very confident that we'll reach that eventually. It's just a matter of when, right? Like Logic bought his first edition Shadowless Charizard for $420,000. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just one of those things, man, where like it's just all about patience, being able to sit on something, and again, it's risk assessment. You're only willing to put in what you're willing to lose, right?
Exactly.
So that's just
In
what
your
it is.
opinion, dude, what out of everything you've seen, what do you think the rarest box is out there? Like, what is the one you've seen the
Ooh.
least?
Um,
It's got to be one of like the middle eras, right?
no. It's probably gonna be still Shadowless, first edition base,
Really?
and Skyridge and EX Deoxys. Yep.
Okay, EX Deoxys makes sense.
Yeah. Actually, maybe Team Rocket Returns too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that too. I would say that.
I would say those are probably the toughest boxes to find. I can find any of these boxes from middle. Dude, it's so easy for me to find a Call of Legends box. It's so easy for me to find a Plasma Store booster box. Like it's very, very easy. But yeah, those boxes, but like I'm not talking like, I don't know, Wizards of the Coast, Japanese boxes are also very rare as well. They're tough to find factory sealed. But yeah,
Gotcha.
Shadowless, Team Rock Returns, EX Deoxys, First Edition Base, Skyridge, um, and Shadowless. Yeah.
And they were telling Spencer said that it's Lexana, Kansas is
Harry
where.
Pokeballs is also right as well. I mean, like those are for those guys who don't follow Harry Pokeballs on Instagram, definitely do so. He's very funny. He has more experience in this space, far more than I do. Very, 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 very knowledgeable about this space. I learned a lot from him as well. I've been following him for such a long time. But yeah, I would say that those boxes are really solid. Even PSA 10s are super scarce in those areas just because of how low the pop is. Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Quick shout out to Harry
question.
Pokeballs.
What's more likely to double, a Twilight Masquerade box or a base first edition PSA 10?
Let me flip the question around. Would you rather hold a first edition base set box and have that retain its value, or rather lose value on a Twilight Masquerade box? Granted, like you're not gonna lose value on a Twilight Masquerade box.
Here's the thing. It's like, no, I mean, obviously Twilight Masquerade's gonna rise,
yeah, of course,
rise faster. But $200,000 in Twilight how many boxes is that? That's a lot of boxes to move. That is one thing you have to remember. That's a lot of product you have to move.
It's a lot of risk, right? Like at the end of the day, like the reason why I don't buy stuff and I don't flip or vend or sell is solely because of the fact that it's a massive liability, right? Like that's what people have to understand. When you're holding on to that much inventory, it's a lot of liability. And before I continue, definitely follow Harry Pokeballs on Instagram. He also lifts as well, and he can give you great squatting tips. But yeah, no, when it comes to that, it's all about risk, right? So would I rather own, $200,000 worth of product from Modern and have that take up space within my storefront or in my studio or in a warehouse versus one item, and then I could kind of just chill on that one box and not care about it, and not really have any rush to sell it, or I'm in this like race to sell these boxes, right? That's like the toughest thing. Like there's really no. I want to preface this by saying
obviously
no
the modern
answer.
boxes are going to grow faster,
right? Like I want to preface this by saying that there's no right answer to this. Like when it comes to investing, it's all about just like the risk that you're willing to take. And there's definitely better investments out there outside of Pokemon, like maxing out your 401k plan, investing in the S&P, buying a house. Like those are all important things. Like this is definitely a risky space to be in, and I like that risk. I just like it because it's fun. It's something I really, really like. But yeah, no, I will preface this Mega Evo Mart. I don't watch this channel. Myself and Alex just became acquainted with each other over the weekend, and established a friendship. And so the last time I saw Alex was in a stream with OKJ Love. So
Guys,
I'll
we have
definitely
to.
like watch him more often. It's just tough. Like as a creator, it's so tough to watch
Oh yeah.
every creator's pieces of content.
No, I was gonna say is guys, like you have to get people on here with different, first of all, different backgrounds, different viewpoints, different
Yeah.
experiences. Like, I mean, it'd be boring if I had someone on here every time. It's like, oh yeah, I agree with that. Oh yeah, I do that too. I agree. It's like, no, I want to have people on that have different viewpoints. Like, so yeah, I mean, obviously my channel is really pro modern sealed investing just because of the track record it's had. I mean, if you're getting an $80, $90 a box, the risk is so low. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's what my channel is about, but he's just talking about a different perspective of the, having to move that amount of inventory, right? The logistics of it. Like, and
It's
so
all
I
about like
understand
how
his point
comfortable
too.
you are. Yeah, I just think it's about like how comfortable you are and with what you're having, what you're holding on to. Like like this like am I comfortable having, this Pokemon Snap machine in my studio? Yeah, because I actually like it, right? I bought it for $1,500. I had Ninja's wife reach out to me asking me that she would buy it for $25,000. I turned it down. I had the Detroit Lions ask me to buy it and I turned it down. Like it's
What?
risky to have. Yeah. I have it's risky, right? Like I keep my cards in the safety deposit box created right now. My cards are in my studio. Like it's just all about risk, right? Like I don't want to have too much risk, and that's why I do like consignments as well. And being a consigner has this risk as well. Like the liability is your reputation, messing up, stuff like that. That's all part of it.
Yeah, that's a
So
question I want to have. Like, what is there income insurance that you keep? Like, are you
yeah,
insured for these items?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm insured.
So when
I keep
they're making this,
everything. I also do take the extra precaution where like I'm also putting things no more than $100,000 in a bank in a safety deposit box until the deal's actually brokered. I'm making sure and vetting every buyer that I have and seller that I have, and everything comes to me. I look at um, things on a level where I'm making sure it's legitimate. I also get other opinions as well. It's like a doctor. You're not going to go to one doctor if you have something going wrong with you. You're going to go to a couple of different doctors. I do the same thing. I reach out to many people who are far more experienced than I. Looking at boxes, I'll reach out to them, ask them. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty safe from my angle because I have a system in place for it, but it still has its risk. Everything has its risk.
so what's the most
Spectacle Dave.
expensive item in your collection, you think?
The most expensive item in my collection probably has to be a tie between my first appearance Lugia and my first edition Shadowless Charizard. Outside
What,
of my toy collection, I consider that priceless for on my end.
what's the first edition Shadowless Charizard? What is it graded?
Yeah, it's a Beckett. It's a Beckett 9.
He has it right next to him.
Yeah, here it is. It's just cause like I legit got back home
Beckett
uh
9 signed.
Tuesday morning.
Is that signed on the card or the case?
Case. It's by my friend Sarah Notachin. She's the voice of Ash, and then a great deal or a great reason why I got into the space is Gary V. I had him sign the case of this, and crazy enough, I'm now in like in a group chat with him. So
I was
it's
gonna say
awesome.
that earlier, man. Like your story, kind of like growing up, it sounds very similar to Gary V's, right? Like moving back home, helping with the family business while you're trying to get your own thing going. Very
Kind of, yeah.
similar.
Yeah. Someone in the comments section talked about the Pikachu Illustrator about its value getting slashed. It's a 9.5. I saw that in Orlando. It's owned by my friend Nick. I saw pictures and scans of it before it even hit the market, but like right when it just got graded too. Uh, and pretty much I had to see it in person because I was like very prepared to like upgrade my 9 to a 9.5 just to have that bragging rights of having a 9.5. And I would say my 9 has a better eye appeal. But I will say this, I agree with a lot of the other experts in the high end of the hobby who do say that like the aspects of these big cards hitting market and hitting auction kind of reduces its appeal a little bit. So we see more of these cards hit these markets more often versus like a private sale or anything of the sort. It really does lessen the appeal, and it makes
I've
it seem
heard
as
that.
if it's
Yeah, like
more accessible.
yeah,
Shout
these
out
collectors,
to
they don't.
Crystal Poke Collector.
Yeah, they almost want things that don't ever hit market or never listed on eBay
Yeah,
because it gives
yeah,
that like allure that they're so sought after you can't find them type thing.
correct. Someone in the comment section says so he's never bought a $3 million booster box of GI Joe cards. That's a PR. That was an entire PR stunt, by the way, guys. That's been concluded as a PR stunt. Do you know anyone else who care about Pokemon Tops? I have a whole collection of collections, and it feels like I'm the only person who gives a damn most of the time. I think Pokemon Tops, depending on what it is, still holds significant hold in the space of collectibles. In my perspective, like I think Pokemon the movie 2000 boxes hold significant value. I think any of the boxes of the Chrome boxes where you can pull Technos, Chrome, Sparkles, whatever, I think those hold significant weight as well. But yeah.
The cards you're talking about so far that you have all been Beckett. Are you more a Beckett guy? You do PSA? Is it both? Is it just about with a card? Where do you stand on that?
So hot take of mine, I think anyone who's talking about grading companies and saying one is better than the other is kind of weird because it's like no different than cheering on an NFL team or an NBA team. At the end of the day, these are companies, buy the card, not the grade. Um,
Unless it's CGC, right?
I will buy CGC cards. Yeah, I will buy
Yeah.
CGC. Let's look at the biggest, right? Let's look at Dubsy for
Hey, you're breaking up again, dude.
crap.
You reset it.
It's just
It's coming back, sorta.
Yeah.
I guess just try to rejoin again. I'll keep it going.
Refreshing.
Yeah, because you're frozen on screen. Guys, any more questions? Keep them coming. We got you. There we go.
Oh,
perfect. Cool. Perfect.
What was it saying?
About the grading companies.
Yeah. So like, yeah, as far as grading companies go, like when the biggest collectors in the world have, CDC graded cards, they have Becker graded cards, PSA graded cards. At the end of the day, it just comes down to the condition matching the card, right? When we look at these big auctions, right, and we look at these controversial conversations where it's like, oh, well, this card got slashed in half, or why did this card sell for so low? Why? Because 9 times out of 10, the comment section is more so about, well, the intelligent people are talking about the condition, whereas like you have Timmies who are talking about, oh, well, it's in this case, that's why. No, it's because of the condition, and that's why. And that's pretty much it. Yes, I do believe PSA and Beckett has higher liquidity than CGC. It's much easier to sell a PSA graded slab, but at the end of the day, CGC is still a great company. We have to remember that. And
yeah,
the hate and from CGC makes no sense to me. Like I have PSA. I created PSA graded cards for 3 years. I have PSA graded cards in my collection. I have Beckett cards in my collection. And I have CGC graded cards in my collection. So that's just my.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what do you think kind of the powerhouse goes? I would say probably Black Label up top, Beckett Pristine, PSA 10 under that.
Oh, what was that?
Like as far as like the highest value, I mean, Black Label's obviously top, and then I would probably put the Pristine above the PSA 10.
Yeah, I mean that's been the case for years now, right? Like that's been the case. It's not an arguable thing.
It's weird though, right? Because it's weird because it depends on the card. Like, and it's not like just like the condition of the card. Like, it's weird. It depends on like because some modern cards don't always hold that rule, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree with that. The reason why is because I think print quality has just gone up in the last 5 years. Like, even like let's take a step outside of Pokemon, right? Let's look at One Piece, Digimon, and Dragon Ball. Bandai has a better print quality than anything. So like there's tons and tons of black labels for all of these different IPs, and everyone grades through Beckett versus PSA if you have those cards, because that's just the best company to grade with as far as those go. And it's tough to deal with that when it comes to PSA. It's the same thing with Y Schwartz. Like the biggest Y Schwartz collectors aren't grading with PSA, they're grading with Beckett. But that's just because like the print quality is so well good. So like we're getting to this age now where we need to lean more into tech more than people grading cards. That's just essentially what I'm looking at. And I'm very, very interested. And mind you guys, this is not an ad. This is not a paid for thing. I'm not sponsored by or anything by Tag. I've known about Tag since I went to Atlantic City for the National. When I see a video where an individual cracks a sports card 10 times and they have it graded by Tag, and Tag's able to give them not only the same grade, but the craziest thing, they give them the exact same cert every single time, then I think technology needs to play a bigger role in all of this. It's kind of crazy how we're still in a space where we're giving cards to a service-based company or service-based companies that are using people to create these cards. And we need more transparency as far as that goes. So I even disagree with some black labels and how they're graded at. Like the way they do these GCRs, I disagree with. So I have criticisms about every company. At the end of the day, all these companies have their faults. It's dumb if we're essentially like picking one over the other at this point.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
oh yeah, PSA is the best.
and it's obvious,
They all
right?
have their
It's like
faults.
it's obvious, like when if like someone like myself who's been grading for years, when you can send in like 5 different orders, and let's say 4 of them get a certain percentage of tens, and then one order gets like way lower. It's like, oh, so I just automatically forgot how to pre-grade in that order, right? It's just
Yeah.
like it all comes down to human error at that point.
Yeah. I mean, like again, I think this individual said it best. People's opinions on the internet don't matter, mine included. Same thing. If you can figure out something that you can learn from me, that's awesome. But Pikachu, shout out to Pikachu.
Absolutely.
He said, "What's your long term goal in content creation in this space? What's your end goal?" So I'm already in that process already. I always made it a point to say like by the age of 35, I want to start my own business in terms of being an agency slash multimedia management company. But
Oh, we're getting into this.
um,
All right, let's do
yeah,
it.
I'm already starting that. That's already something that's happening right now. So I'm already starting my own process as far as that goes. I'm very aware of scalability as a content creator. Like I'm very aware. Well, I haven't seen the cap yet in terms of brand deals as far as being a content creator goes, but eventually someone's gonna hit it, and I don't know if it's been hit yet, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it's why I want my own business as far as that goes. So
Well, I think Mr.
as
Beast
far
has
as
kind of talked about it. I think he's kind of hit it to where he said, he can't really charge more because the brands don't have that much to spend in a year on advertising. But for him,
yeah,
it's not worth it because he gets too much, exposure. So obviously, there's a cap somewhere at like the highest of highs. But I don't think anyone here is going to reach that cap. So we're good. We're good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I'm aware of individuals in the collectible space that are getting paid 15, 20,000 a month from brands. So it's it's kind of crazy, but yeah, no, Tag does have issues with its current grading, but again, it's an AI system that learns, right? So it's a very new company and they haven't rolled it out completely. They even max out how many cards they grade. So I think what they're trying to do is going to be awesome. I think what they try to do with like their accessibility to grading and making collectors feel much more safe with their cards is going to be really really cool once they roll that out. I can't talk about it, but as far as their R&D stuff with what they're trying to do with like LGSs and stuff like that, it's gonna be massive. And
Talking about what,
I
like
just think
you talking about like the pods they set up. And
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. So then then I guess people know about it. So the
Yeah,
pods
they
I
put that.
think
That's a
will
public
be
statement. Yeah, they put it out like where they're
okay.
gonna
Okay.
eventually set up like almost like
Pods at
self-grading
LGSs, yeah.
pods.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's gonna be awesome. Why? Because like the average collector doesn't want to send out their cards to a company where you're waiting and trying to see what happens to your cards 2-3 weeks. I mean, like I don't know about most of these guys, but some of these guys probably weren't here. Some of them, I'm not gonna say all of them, were probably not here during the time of the boom during COVID where PSA return times were months. I'm talking about months. I know people who didn't get their cards
Years.
until a year later.
Oh, me.
And
I
so
was one of them.
yeah, I was doing grading submissions for people as a service, group based submissions, and I remember how annoying that was, just not being able to know like what happened to these people's cards. Like, my response to them was like, "Hey guys, like I'll know by the time when PSA takes that money out of my account. Like the moment they pull that money out, I know that's when I'm getting my cards back." It was just so frustrating at that time. And even
But
their tracker was off, like it wasn't even working. So, uh, with having these pods in space, having innovation in space is always a good thing. And I'm not gonna dunk on any company out there. I've worked with every company at a certain capacity. I think at the end of the day, there's something that can be learned from different companies, and they can learn from each other as well.
Yeah, I think it's all about creating like the least amount of friction when using a service. So like
Yeah,
I have people who run businesses through Discord and they lose out on customers because they can't figure it out. They don't know how to use Discord. They don't want to use Discord. So they lose out on that customer. And
yeah,
same thing with like PSA. I mean, I have people tell me all the time, like, well, can I send you my cards? You send them in. I thought about doing that service, but it's like people they don't want to sign up for the membership. They don't want to go through the submission. They're afraid to send it this. They're afraid to do that. They don't know
yeah,
how it works. And it's just like if they could ever like if they could find out a way to reduce that friction from the customer standpoint, where it's just like,
yeah.
oh yeah, I drive up to my local store, I put my card in, and it's done. That would be a absolute game changer.
Yeah. Just to highlight Mega Evo Mart's question before I get back to Pikachu's question. AGS is basically the same idea, but fun fact, guys, they don't even own their own AI. They have it licensed to them. So at any given moment, whoever owns that actual AI can easily pull it back. So it's different. And then I would disagree with Tag is getting a lot of influencer publicity. What influencers are talking about Tag? What influencers are actually talking about it? Is it actual hardcore collectors that are talking about it that you consider an influencer? Because I'll say this right off the bat. Um, Dubsy himself, the person that sold Logan Paul his PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator, he himself has said the Tag 10 Pikachu Illustrator is cleaner than the PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator. So it's just one of those things, guys. Like it's 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 this thing where people want to say that AGS is basically the same thing when it's not. It is so much more different than what that Tag is doing. So I hope
Yeah, I
that
mean,
answers that
it's
question.
just like whatnot. It's just like the whole whatnot debate thing. It's like I'm always concerned with how people are going to use companies or use services, less about the actual company and the service itself, right? And so, like, everyone's always worried about whatnot. Oh, they're scammers. It's like, okay, well, that's like 1% of the people on there. Like, there's people on there that are, running a business or doing it legitimate. It's still it's a great platform for auctions and giveaways and all that. And that's how I made a video early on about Tag when I first heard about it, right?
Yeah.
And that was my only concern was if a bunch of people who own, these high-end cars that are very sought after
Yeah.
have a bunch of friends in the content community and
Yeah.
they can put those cards in Tag slabs and then pump up the fact that, well, this is now the highest grade. This is better than a black label. This is better than a PSA 10. This should be worth more. It's almost like a way of like artificially inflating it without actual appreciation of the item. And it's like, oh, well, now this Charizard's worth 300,000 and not 200,000 because it's in this piece of plastic. And so that's the only thing I was worried about happening.
Yeah, the biggest thing is like PSA, CGC, and Beckett. They're service-based grading companies, right? We need to look at Tag as a tech company, right? And it shouldn't be seen as a service-based company that the other companies are essentially doing. Like we're paying the service to do this. We should be looking at this thing where people can actually treat this AI-based grading tool that's grading on an actual metric and is grading on that much more consistently than some employee at any of these grading companies, right? We all know the parameters for Beckett, CGC, and PSA, right? But we know for a fact that these employees all look at things differently. And by having a tool look at everything on a much consistent fashion, that's what we should be looking for. That we shouldn't be hating on innovation. We should be looking at it and encouraging that. Yeah, there's
What about
flaws
the
within the
people,
system.
though? What about the employees?
People need to adapt. That's just how it is, right? Like my job can go away from because of AI as well. Um, it's a tool at the end of the day. Like we can have these people doing different things, manufacture certain things, and I don't know. Like that's what they have to figure out. I'm not the person that's to figure out that part. But and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy for me to say, considering that I have friends who work at CGC, who work at PSA, who work at Beckett. Um, but yeah,
I feel like that's
to
going
go
to be
back to
the question of every company, across the
yeah.
whole world in
every
the next
industry,
10,
every
20 years.
industry.
It's
Yeah.
what about the employees? We're taking away all their jobs. It's like, well, we'll
Yeah.
make new jobs or we'll come up with other system. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. But to go back to Pete Detchie's question is, yeah, I'm starting up my own company along with my two friends, 100 Charizards and Caleb X Swag, both great individuals, both good friends of mine, and we're working with a variety of different things from what we know right now, and then we're gonna eventually scale out to what we can do. And we have a few different people that will eventually back us, but um, that's later on.
What about the whole eBay Vault thing? eBay Vault moving to PSA.
So I can't talk about eBay Vault contractually speaking, just because I work with eBay, and I have had contracts with eBay as well.
Yeah, you
But
can't speak negatively about them. I know.
yeah, and so with that in mind, I don't know, it's definitely different. I think eBay Vault had some great ideas in the very beginning, but I think that because of time and how underutilized it was, or how there probably was issues with it that I'm not that I'm not aware of. But at the same time, I think that all these companies are trying to learn something. all these companies are trying to do something different at the end of the day, and they're trying to figure out what works and how to make it more aligned with the collectible space as best as possible. Uh,
Yeah.
Shaka Zulu, just to answer just to point out your point, mind you, the Zapdos card that we're talking about the TMB Zapdos. That's a card that isn't not necessarily seen by most grading systems as a whole, and so its AI probably didn't have enough time to look at it as a whole. That's a one outlier. Let's send in the same let's send in Moonbryon. How about all of this? For all of you guys that have Moonbryons, let's go ahead and crack them out if they're all PSA 10s. Let's send it all to tag. If it gets tag 10, let's crack it out again and let's send it over 5 different times. Let's see what happens. How about that?
Hold on. BV says, not memeing when I ask this, but does the vast majority of graded card customer base actually care about the intricacies of condition of the card, or is it more simple? I just want the 10s. I would say it depends on what cards. I think most modern, like Sword and Shield, Scarlet Violet, people don't care, right? They're buying the card, they're buying the number. I think when you get back to the high end, right, the high end cards that are in the 5 and 6 figures, those people care.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a tough question to ask because I know that there's a lot of vendors that are like this. There's this trend right now where a lot of vendors are going to different booths, finding like strong 9s and strong 10s, and trying to bump it up to black label 10s. So that's something that I think that the
hey, when there's margin there, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna happen. People are always gonna do that. People are gonna find opportunities to where there aren't opportunities and be able to make money on it. So yeah, some people just straight up only care about the 10s and what they're gonna sell for. But like actual collectors, real collectors, and I mean that, real collectors are going to care about condition. Like I'm a toy collector at the end of the day. I care about the condition of the packaging of the stuff that I own, right? Like I'm also an expired Pokemon food collector and a vintage video game collector. I condition matters, guys.
An
yeah.
expired food collector. I haven't heard it put that way yet.
Yeah. There's dude, people sleep on that too. There's people that I know that spend thousands of dollars on just one singular item that's expired food. Yeah.
I saw the short. I saw the short of you buying that Reese's box.
Yeah, bought it for $150.
How many are those, like limited?
Yeah, they were extremely limited. They sold out. They only sold on Reese's Puffs website. I'm also a big Dragon Ball Z fan. The front is lenticular, so it's Goku, and the front.
No, I said who isn't?
Oh yeah, and then the back is like a hollow foil embossed Shenron.
Yeah, that's sick. That's cool pickup. What other unique items you have back there that we probably wouldn't know? Let's see.
I have
right in the middle. What's that Pokeball?
So we all know about the marbles that sold back in the day for Pokemon marbles. That is actually the display for the marble. So this is a factory seal display for the marble collection that holds all the marbles for Pokemon. Yeah.
Nice. And then N64 still works, right?
Yeah, still works. I just have to plug it up and turn it on. Yeah. Still prints and stickers and everything.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
VB said he's coming back with this question. I don't disagree by any means, but I also feel like it's a small percentage of customer base, and these companies meant to make money. So appealing to the masses, appealing to the top 5%. Oh, so appealing to the masses is greater than the top 5%. That doesn't make a point to like keep their grading standards like not unison though, right? Like not uniform.
Right. I think it's important to maintain a level of grading standards that you have set on base, right? That's just my opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that should be everyone's goal in the community. Like it shouldn't be what company, it should be getting to a point where you can send the same card every single time and get the same exact grade as long as it didn't get damaged, taken out of the case, or putting back in a sleeve or something.
Because who's paying for all that? Someone asked who's paying for all that, man. You going to guarantee my Moon Kitty? Well, no, I'm not going to guarantee it. I'm not going to pay for it. If you're confident in the grade that you have, then why not do it, right? Like, just test it out.
Come on, man. You're not guaranteeing all these
no, like, dude, I don't know, man. Sometimes I'm kind of blunt, and sometimes it can come off as like douchey or mean, but like, yeah, just send it. If you're confident in your cards, just send it, right? Like,
well, I was watching some of your content, and I was, some of the stuff. I came across one that we are in total agreement on, the mystery pack combo, especially now with like the controversy around PokeRevs 5.0 packs and oh, he pulled one of the rainbows. Like everyone's always upset about mystery products in general. Like, the
Yeah,
Omega
just don't buy
slab
it.
are sold. Like, just give your take on that, because it's the same as mine.
Um, if you're gonna complain about mystery packages and you losing money on it, then why isn't anyone complaining to Pokemon about their pulls with their product, right? Those are actual mystery packages. This entire space is predicated on degeneracy. Let's remember that, guys. Like, it's just one thing that we have to understand, that we're all putting in money into something, and if someone opens something, they open something great, then that's what they get. But if you open up something and you don't get anything out of it, then that's kind of on you, right? Like, it's
And to
borderline
take it one
gambling.
step further, right? Pull out your booster boxes, right? Look on every angle of it. Pull out the booster pack. Look on every angle. Pokemon doesn't even put odds on their products.
Yeah.
Not even like sports or something. So everyone worried about, oh, well, they're not clear about the odds. Pokemon doesn't even give you odds. The pull rates you get, those are all third party of people that open, a certain amount
Correct.
of packs. They give the data, TCG Player, whoever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon doesn't even give you pull rate data on their products.
I mean, like, what was the most recent modern set where, people were complaining about the pull rates, but come to find out, a lot of the big hits were just stolen from the manufacturer. What set
Fusion
was that?
Strike.
Yeah, Fusion Strike, right? Like, those odds would have been probably different if all those cards actually made it to set. So, yeah, like it's this aspect of this entire market is probably it comes out of degeneracy, man. Like, I just think that like if I buy a mystery product, I'd probably just buy it for the pure enjoyment of it. If I like to this day, if I buy a booster box or a booster pack, my mindset's shifted because I'm making a decent amount of money in this space. So where it's like, okay, like I'm gonna buy this booster box because I want to have fun with my friends, and that's what it should be.
Yeah, it should be all about it's entertainment, right? You're paying for entertainment. Like, that's the other
Yeah.
part. It's just like there's not really many entertainment forums out there where at the end of it you're actually going to have value. It's like, okay, you go to a concert, you got memories, but you got nothing. You go out to a football game, you got memories, but you have nothing. At least after ripping a bunch of packs, you have some sort of value. Maybe it's only $20 in value. Maybe you pull a hit card, it's 150. You have at least something left over, which is nice.
Yeah, it's why like if I'm buying something, I'm buying something to keep it. I'm not like buying it to like sell later on, right? Like, a lot of people will say like, "Oh, I just cracked this Evolving Skies booster box," and they open like 10 of those booster boxes, and they're in the red, and they finally pull the Moon Kitty, and they'll hold on to it, and then when the new set comes, they're like, "Crap, I can't afford to buy this box." So what will they do? They'll sell their Moon Kitty, they'll sell all their bulk, and then this vicious cycle of gambling just kind of takes place. For me, like, everything that you see in the studio, everything that you see in on my Instagram page as a whole, I've held on to long term. Like, I haven't. I bought this cereal box back in 2019. I have a Pokemon sealed Pokedex somewhere over here in the studio that I've had since 2019. I'm holding on to these things. So that's just my perspective on the matter. Um,
The ever question, the ever long question about the hobby will have another boom when our generation retires. We'll all have much more money to spend. I mean, I think we're like in a great time in the hobby. Like, I understand everyone talks about the COVID time. I mean, honestly, like, that was just like, it had nothing to do with Pokemon. It had to do with like the governments and the world just changing as a whole for a certain period of time.
yeah.
Whereas, I mean, if you took that like couple we'd still be on like a steady trajectory like we always work. I got back in the hobby in 2015, and from 15 to 20, it was a pretty steady trajectory. There was kind of a downtime in the TSA market in 2018, but like it was pretty steady upwards. I mean, when I got back in the hobby, a base set booster box was $800. By the time 2020 came around, it was like in the 2000s, like pretty steady growth. I think it would just still be doing that. I think we'll still continue that kind of trend.
Yeah, I think we're in a good spot in the hobby right now. It's why a lot of the bigger whales in the hobby are either doing big purchases. Like, there's a lot of big purchases that we're seeing right now. Like, we all know accounts that are buying Pikachu Illustrators, Black Lotuses, first edition LOB Blue Eyes. Like, we're seeing that happen right now, and a lot of these buyouts are happening. Like, even big buys are happening at private levels. So,
But here's my
the most
question.
wealthy individuals. Okay,
The other
go ahead.
side of that, who's selling off of these things to them?
I mean, like, you have people who have realized the gain on it, obviously, so they feel like it's a good time to sell, right? Like some of the stuff that is coming out right now is selling, right? But all again, the inverse of that, it's being bought out more so than people are selling. And I'm friends with a few of these big individuals that are buying out big cards because they feel like it's a very undervalued time to buy big cards. I have a client out in Singapore who's bought, well over $1 million worth of boxes in just like the last 12 months alone. So that's indicative of it. And we keep it all private because, you know, the look, if a lot of these super wealthy individuals just were super public about their purchases, don't you think that would incite a boom? And then wouldn't you think they'd be shooting themselves in the foot by letting everyone know what they're doing because everyone would follow suit?
Well, you know what's crazy about that though? Like on the flip side though, okay? The public companies on Wall Street release when they buy or sell shares. And it doesn't really create a run on the stock or like a sell off on the stock usually. Like when Warren Buffett or anyone of the big like hedge funds like make plays, like people know
Right.
about it, it's talked about, content's made around it, but it doesn't seem like other than like the GameStop thing, but that was a whole social media that was different. It wasn't like a big hedge fund, a big wealthy individuals doing that. So it's interesting to think about. Maybe it's just because
Right,
the
but
collectible
I think
space
the
is.
Pokemon space is just different, dude. I think there's so much foam. Like, dude, we had people creating and inciting like massive like issues at the Van Gogh Museum for just the Van Gogh cars that are virtually worth nothing right now, right? We saw in 2020 when people were causing like fights at retail stores over a modern product. So like Pokemon is not a regulated market like Brett said. It's not a regulated market like it is the stock market, right? When people tell people, when I have clients of mine saying that Shiv, like you can record this, but like you cannot show it on socials, then that's telling, man. When I see a sheet on from a very credible person of 97 Pika trophies, then that's telling. Like when I see a lot of these different things that are taking place, man, it's crazy, dude. It's a different space, and if a lot of these big multi-million dollar individuals, like very wealthy individuals, disclose everything that they're doing, people are gonna want to know what they're doing and how to do it, and um, I mean, it's kind of like why we're here today. Like, I watch all these different podcasts from different individuals just to see what they're doing, just to learn something.
Yeah, obviously you start out in the content space, but like, what benefits do you think there are of like running your style of business as like either a consignment or a broker, moving high end items compared to like, what I would say the mass majority of people are doing that make it full time in this hobby, which are either card shops or just online selling individuals who just do large amounts of volume, whether it be thousands of sealed boxes a month, whether it be thousands of, hundreds of graded cards, or sell bulk through TCG Player where they're moving tens of thousands. Like,
Yeah.
what like benefits do you think there are to like moving into something like your route, whereas you're moving a lot less, but you're definitely going through lower lows and higher highs type thing? I mean, what kind of, I guess, give you your experience that you've had doing what you do?
I mean, like, I like doing different things at the end of the day because I just don't like doing one thing. I get really bored really fast if I just did content every single day. I'll get really bored really fast if I just did consignments or sales or anything of the sort every single day. So I switch it up. Anytime I have a box that comes on my desk, it's a great time. I can make content on it. I can sell it. It's great. It's a cool time. There's times where I receive boxes. I'm like, I just won't take it because I'm caught up doing other things. Like right now, I'm in a spot during the summer. Summer is the most busiest time of the year for me because I'm week to week flying to a different spot in the country every single week, and it's going to be the case for like the next 12, 16 um, weeks, and so it's it's one of those things where everything does go through a higher high or lower low. I will say that like my overall collection, if I would have bought in post boom, I would definitely be in the red. But I'm chilling just because I bought everything in 2019, or I bought things at a very undervalued standpoint to where I'm still very much in the green. Like just to be able to get my first edition Shadowless Charizard, the total cost in terms of all the cards that I bought plus grading fees, plus flying out, plus staying in a hotel, trading. The overall dollar value that goes into what I put into my first edition Shuttle Charizard is $5,000, $5,000. So the card could go down to $10,000 today. I still would be perfectly content. It's all about my entry to that actual market. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be different to everyone else. Like, at what point did you enter whatever you're buying into? At what point did you buy in at too high, or did you get in too late? Like, those are all different things, right? Like, if I bought into Evolving Skies right now as a booster box, maybe that's too late, maybe that's too soon, maybe that I'm still early. Who knows? Like, we just have to make educated guesses on what we know and what we're comfortable with. That's just what I would say on that.
What are some
There's a
like
question.
what are some
Oh
obvious
god.
things? Like what are the whales doing that we're not? Like ignoring the sheer size or the money, like what are some of the things they're thinking about that you would say like average people aren't?
Some of them, like, okay, a good example is my client out in Singapore. He's just focusing on buying big boxes. That's just what it is. People want boxes. Um, we know that these live auction selling platforms have been around for like the last 4 years now. A lot of these big streamers, they spend, what a lot of people don't know is that streaming might seem easy, but a lot of these big streamers who are breaking boxes every single weekend, they're spending the other 6 days trying to source these boxes. It's becoming more and more difficult.
It's
And
hard.
a lot
It
of
is
a
getting
lot of
hard.
these owners of these big boxes are holding a vice grip on these boxes. So, yeah, I mean, that's just what I'm seeing. A lot of these big buyers that I'm more accustomed with, that I know of, they're going out of their way to find unique cards. They're trying to get sketches. They're getting signatures still. They're um they're trying to buy boxes on a much more bigger deal. Or what they'll do is that a lot of them are becoming whales because they're going to convention, and they're coming in with a big budget, and they're buying cards at margin. They're buying these big cards at margin at 70%. And with these high moving, high dollar cards that move really quick, they'll probably sell at 85%,
Are you
90%.
you're
But the rest
talking
from
are you talking about the vendors?
yeah, yeah. Some of these vendors, some of these streamers, yeah, that's what they're doing. Yeah.
Oliver,
There's money
thanks
to
for
be made.
joining the membership. Pokey grinding. Appreciate the super sticker, guys. I wanted to make sure to shout you guys out. Um, yeah, that's pretty wild. Like I think that definitely does make a lot more sense for the higher dollar stuff, like getting those
Mhm.
margins because you can actually move off of them.
It's a dollar game, right? Um, I think the vast majority of big buyers, they just have a lot of money to work with. That's just with anything. That's with any business. It's a money game, right? So when someone says like, "What are the big whales doing that smaller collectors just aren't doing?" Is it's more on a budget, right? Like these guys are willing to put in a lot of money into something that they have experience with, that they've seen multiple market cycles with, and they trust it because they've been involved with this for such a long time that they see it. Dude, there's people, I won't say who they really are, but Benjamin B. Benjamin B is a great example. He's a real person. He's not some fake person. I'm not going to say who they really are, but they're spending more than what the actual, like, they're spending more money on these cards, way above market value. And people are like, "Oh, is this person just like dumb?" No, they just have they just have fuck you money. They just have f you money, and they're willing to throw that at anything. And that's why they've been able to collect everything that they've been able to get up to this point, and how fast they've been able to collect up to this point. Like, they have a
We're out there.
stupid amount of money. They're out there.
All right, so Boondock Games. All right, because I have my own opinion on this, but you can. I want to get yours first. But he said if you step back and
Mhm,
explain what's going on in this hobby to a logical person, it
mhm.
sounds very bubbly.
I'd say there's spots there's certain aspects of the hobby that are very bubbly, but I wouldn't say some spots are very bubbly. So what I mean by that is that right now, I would argue that, to me, and this is from my perspective, in 2024, this what's going on in the hobby right now is very reminiscent of 2019. And what I mean by that is that you have a lot of people focusing on the modern sets, a lot of people that are focusing on modern sets, and vintage is falling right through the wayside. And we're gonna get to a point where it can this path continues to happen, and we're at that same point where we were in 2019, where a lot of vintage product is still very much undervalued, and then people are going to say, "Oh, I missed out on this because of all these big guys." They're going to blame it on influencers again, and it still happens. There's a lot of people out there that are blaming creators because of this quote unquote boom, or how they can't afford vintage. Well, vintage is now more affordable than what it was 4 years ago.
Well,
So
it's,
why
it's
aren't you buying
happening.
it
You
now?
saw this chat. It's happening with the modern market too. Everyone
Yeah.
blames people like me why modern goes up. It's like because some guy with 10,000 subs has an effect on the market, you know?
You'd be surprised, man. You'd be surprised. People, we're in a very niched out community, and this space is a fishbowl of a community. And you know, I'm not gonna deny the influence that I have if I talk about a card, dude. I back in
Oh yeah, I mean,
2020.
I agree. You can like cause like small influence on certain cards, but like me telling people like, hey, this modern booster box, you know, if you're getting it at $85, $90, it's probably good investment. It's probably going to be $200-300 in a matter of 3, 4, 5 years. Like that's not going to affect the market. Like that
Right, but
happens
how many?
organically.
Right, but like let's say let's say you're getting on average maybe 200, 300 people who are watching you on live every single week, right? All these people all have their own friend groups. Let's say on average they have 4 or 5 people that they themselves are talking to. Then you've now multiplied 200 to now 1,000. So like you can't deny the shareability or the virality of a piece of content that's taking place. Like I remember when I bought my first appearance loogie at $800, and my other friend bought his raw for $200, and that ended up creating as a 9. And the biggest sale that I did with that was back in 2021 at um at $12,000. And since then it's just done this. And when all these auction houses reached out to me in regards to putting out content in regards to the first appearance Lugia, I didn't have a problem with it. So when it sold for $25,000 to $30,000, it was solely because the nines have never sold in an open market, and they never sold in a private market as well. So you can't deny its impact of what it is. Like when I first bought my card at $800, 2 months later, after posting about it on socials, I bought the same card, same grade, different grading company at PSA for $2,000. So I'm like, I shot myself in my own foot. But yeah,
I mean, I'll give my take. Like my take, like I don't think it feels bubbly. I think for me,
it feels bubbly because there's no regulation in this space. Like that's why it feels bubbly. There's a lot of movements, a lot of risk, a lot of volatility that takes place with this space because there's no regulation. If there was regulation, it wouldn't seem as bubbly.
I just think it's kind of like it's kind of what happens when more trust and more track record is happens in a space, right? So like now that this has been going on for so long and we've seen steady growth, there's been ups and downs, there's been booms and busts, but things were covered, things have stayed steady. I think it feels more trustworthy to people. It allows people to feel more comfortable putting their money to work and thinking that it's going to be a store of value, thinking it's going to be a good investment, and that just inherently draws more money in because of the trust in the market. It's like the same thing as any market, right? It's not just collectibles.
Well, we saw massive boom in 2020 and 2021, right?
Yeah.
And what happened right after? We saw a rubber band effect, right? Everything corrected. And when things correct, that's when a new established, market value is built based on the entire market, based on consumers, based on market sentiment. And when we level out, then that means that's what the actual market value is. So my thing is just very simple. We're gonna experience high highs, and then we're gonna experience lows, but the lows are definitely not gonna be as low as what it used to be 3-4 years ago, right? Like look at what a PSA 10 a first edition Shadows Charizard was selling for in 2019.
It's always gonna be higher lows.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean that's kind of how I see it. I mean, I just think people just get, they buy into those like, I don't know what would say, those like gotcha phrases, like this it's all gonna blow up. These have no intrinsic value. It's like, dude, collectible markets have been going around for hundreds of years. Like people have always traded collectible goods. Like there's the collectible wine markets, the art markets, now there's like tennis shoes, now there's it's like you can go on and on and on, comic books, and it's just it's always going to be a thing. I mean, thinking that the most popular franchise is going to like fizzle out and those aren't going to be collected the same way all these other things are going to be collected in the next 50, 100 years, whatever. I think you're kind of fooling yourself at that point.
Yeah. I mean, also side note, Greg, that's Dr. Applesauce. Will's a good person, but at the end of the day, like he just does not have the same level of experience as I do in the high end side of the collectible side of the hobby and who I'm talking to and who I'm friends with.
I've had Will on the channel. I mean, I've met him a couple times. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Great guy. I think he's a decent person. People like to dunk on him. I don't see the reason why. He's just a normal person like anyone else. But yeah, he just doesn't have the level of experience that I've had in the space in the last 5 years. And he's more so talking about things that are more accessible to the average collector versus like what I'm talking about on a consistent basis. Most of my content's geared towards the high end side of the hobby, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I make very similar content to him, so that's why I like having people like you on, right? To give the other side of things. And I know people have been
Yeah.
saying in the chat the whole time, and I've been seeing your guys' comments. I just haven't been taking. I'm like, guys, I understand that I have videos I make that may either not be what what he's talking about or agree with the things he's saying, but that's not what this whole thing. It's about getting a broader aspect so you can make decisions on what you enjoy in the hobby or what your beliefs are. Like, not everything has to be we all agree on everything and so we're all happy and holding hands and singing
Right.
kumbaya. Like, that's
Right.
what makes this whole thing fun, is everyone having their own their own ideas and putting those voting with their dollars, and who we'll see who's right in the end
Yeah.
type thing.
I'm just simply talking about how I got here. It has nothing to do with like what you guys need to do. Like
Dude, it's the
what
internet.
works for right.
People have to
What
try to
works for someone else
try
doesn't
to
work
pit
for
you
you.
against each other.
Yeah. What works for someone else isn't gonna work for you. That's just how I say it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny.
but yeah, it's a pretty good spot. But yeah, I'm
Peak
mostly
that you
focused in
said
on the
that.
content side.
So peak that you said, I would say the whales are creating strategic relationships that the average collector doesn't have or isn't working towards.
Yeah, they've already had these strategic relationships yet, and I mean Zach Jetman Pokemon is a great person to kind of talk about. I'd highly recommend for you to like bring him on here if you haven't. But Zach is someone that is probably the biggest reason why I'm in the position I am today. He kind of inspired me to make content the way I am today. Um, and it all started like when I was just in college, So, he's very well connected. Be having an extensive network in this space is only going to be additive and not subtractive. And I think that's what is what's indicative of what someone makes in this hobby in terms of profit, in terms of money or anything. Like you could easily with the network that you have, you could just simply make a friendship based network where they're helping you find cards for less than market value. That's a network, right? So a lot of these big guys, they all know each other. They all talk to each other. They're all involved with each other in one shape, in some way, shape, or form. So yeah.
Oh, it's so funny that you say that. It just because I I don't know if you've ever heard the whole thing about like the cabal. You ever hear that?
I don't.
No, it's just like it's something I came up with. Like, I was trying to tell people that I'm like, guys, it became this like thing across the internet that a lot of people started talking about. But I'm like, guys, that all of these guys all talk. They all talk about the plays or the purchases or things they're doing before it happens. Like, this isn't when things happen, when news hits everyone else. The news has already been talked about by all the groups of people out there before it happened. Like, and
Yes
that's
and
what
no.
I
Yes and
keep
no.
trying to get through people's minds. And everyone always acts like I'm a
Yeah.
conspiracy theorist, but this
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, yes and no. So yeah, some of the stuff does happen, but like some moves are often done alone and they won't talk to each other on that level because again, it's a healthy competition. It's like content creators, right? Like content creators all talk to each other. We all talk to each other. And the thing is that like we're not going to like disclose everything right off the jump. Maybe like right after, maybe we'll have different conversations or we'll give help to each other. But it's like anything else, right? Like everyone is going to have their own best interests at hand, and then these guys are also going to be talking on a high level as well. Like there's big individuals in the hobby that only talk about collectibles from a purist standpoint, right? Like I was at Card Party, and the most expensive card there is by this guy who no one knows what he looks like because he keeps his face off the internet. And I had to tell people, like all my content creator friends, like, hey, you probably should go talk to this person because they have the world's most expensive card here, probably.
Yeah,
So
and speaking of Gem Mint, I made plans to have him on, and it was after a Collecticon as well. And what
yeah.
happened was he got real busy with the business with the Omega slabs and everything, and it just never worked out. I need to reach back out to him and see if he's got time to come on and talk, because I
Yeah,
would like to hear his.
he shot me a text while I was in Kansas City asking how things are going as far as KC
I thought he would be
that.
there too. He wasn't there at that one.
Yeah, he's usually there, but like he's also very busy as well with those mystery boxes they have about to go. But yeah, it's an interesting space. I like my biggest advice is just as per usual, don't overextend yourself. Buy things that you are um willing and wanting to buy that you genuinely like within reason. A good person to follow is SM Pratt. He gives a lot of good advice in regards to what to look out for, what not to look out for. He gives a lot of different perspectives that I think people um that are talking about. And yeah, it's just You just take it day by day, buy what you want to buy, and that's just really what it is. I guess I'm controversial, guys. I talk about collectibles all the time. That makes me controversial. Thanks, Blake.
Dr. Applesauce and Shavam are swimming in controversy.
Maybe more so Dr. Applesauce.
I need to bring in
Apostle
Blake.
Bud actually likes me.
Blake, who's a reputable guest? I just want to just throw a name out there.
What's funny is that he could probably name any reputable guest, and they all like me. Anyone. It could be Rev. It could be Radar. It could be anyone.
Pokey Grind. Yeah, Alex, check out SM Pratt. Yeah, so me and Scott and the E4 community don't have a great relationship. I've been banned from that community.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but guys, it's just everyone's got different perspectives, different friend groups, different opinions. It's no big deal. Like I think people make bigger issues out of it than it is.
Yeah, I like I said, I think like a lot of this drama does again exist on the internet, and I think a lot of the audiences like feed into it heavily. And like we also have to remember, like we're arguing over like people who have drama over this. It's cardboard, guys. Like you have grown men, sweaty binder kids, sweaty slab adults who are complaining about cars, and we're all arguing against each other and for what, right? And it's one of those things that it's just it makes no sense to me. I think it's important to hold people accountable. Drama does sell; it gets clicks. We're conditioned to click on it, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things where we just have to remember why we're here. Remember that we came into this hobby to buy cards, collect, interact with each other, and make friends. And that's what I'm solely here for, right? It's why I don't really put out a lot of my opinions on socials like I used to back in the day. It's why all my content is purely based on why cards matter and why they have value, and that's really it. Like, who cares what anyone else has to say? Like, I'm just here where I just care about the cards. I love talking about cards. I love talking about cool, unique things. Like this is one card that I have right here. This is a 1/1 SpongeBob sketch. It's a 1/1 tops card. I like talking about cool cards. I like talking about that. Like when I go to conventions, I like talking to people about what they have in their collection and what they have and why they have it. It's always refreshing at the end of the day. Like,
where'd you get your
this
hands on
stuff.
something like that?
So after getting my first big eBay check, I got paid $7,500 by eBay after just making 3 pieces of content for them, and they covered my cost of my flight and my hotel slash Airbnb. And I spent $1,000 on this bad boy. So it's like a reward for myself. I like being able to buy collectibles, and that's it. And yeah, just hang out with my content creator friends, have a good time. Like, people see it on my stories whenever I'm with my friends, and it's not even about, the drama anymore. Like, I don't participate in it. I just like hanging out with my friends, and that's all I care about. Being able to create something new, do something different, put out something to where someone learns something about a cool card that they didn't quite see before. And maybe it comes across someone's, feed that's never collected before, and they might see that as an opportunity to, participate in this, cool hobby. So that's just really what it is.
It's a little exhausting at this point with the drama. It's just like, I'm all for debates. Like, I'm all for having like discussions and going back and forth on what, but it's like the drama on making these like videos about like
I don't even debate anymore either, because at the end of the day, like, that person has they have their reasons, and from their perspective, they're right in their own fashion as well. So at the end of the day, like, I don't participate in it. I just like putting out value, because remember, like, I'm a content creator at the end of the day. What value am I actually bringing in to someone as my audience member if I'm participating in drama and they're just seeing it? They're gonna go back to bed. They're gonna go to their workplace, and what do they gain? What do they get from this? They just saw a bunch of grown men or whoever arguing with each other for no pointless reason. I would much rather. I have a lot of respect for my audience's time to be able to bring value in my shape, in my own perspective. Like, I want to be able to give them a reason why they're watching content in a way that they can gain something out of it. Like, one of the best moments ever was, I have people who became friends. I mean, that I've become friends with, that watch my content during the time of COVID because I was providing advice, and they said, because of you, Shiv, I've now gone full time in collectibles and I've done all these different things. I'd rather hear that than just having to hear someone who just like feeds into some content about like what I'm doing or how they like why they disagree. Like they can do that. That's cool. Whatever.
I've said that from the beginning. Like those are the best messages to get when people like send me like or they share me like how they've been doing or whatever plays they've made, and it's just that is the best. That's better than anything else happening. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, I wish.
Also, like, why am I spending my time like arguing with some sweaty dude when I could be like talking to some chick? You know,
Yeah.
like I'd rather do that instead.
You know what's funny too? I feel like it's more the community, like the people out there making more out of it than the actual two people or group of people that are involved in it.
Yeah,
Always.
and they feed into it, and then it
Yeah.
adds more fuel to whatever
And you
flame
start
that
reading it, you
exists.
start seeing more
Yeah.
about it, and you're like, oh, maybe I should be upset with this guy, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, you don't even know me. Why are you upset with me? You don't know
Perfect
me.
example. Perfect example of this was the OKJ Love thing where you saw me on. First of all, like I'm not a Japanese side guy, so I didn't even know who OKJ Love was. So I
Yeah, he's a
didn't
good
know.
person. Yeah,
I
he's a
started
decent
getting
guy.
sent all of these the video he made about like, you know, calling out Pokemon investors. And so people like, hey, you need to respond, you need to respond, you need to respond. So I made a response video. And he said, or he reached out, or someone else, like, I forget how it went. Maybe I reached out to him. So he brought me on, and that night turned into way more than I had envisioned it happening. I thought we were just going to get on there and discuss some things. But
Yeah.
afterwards, people like made this big thing out of it, acting like, you know, all this who won, who lost, like this, that, they got this wrong. You beat them there. It's just like, dude, we were just all getting on there to chat and give our opinions on this whole thing. Like, no one's at each other's throats here.
Yeah, I mean, again, this all happens on the place of the internet. You go to like a IRL event, like people really do change up how they react and act to each other, and it really puts things into perspective. Like it's just that's just how it is, man. Like people just have way too much time on their hands, and if you're that person that's, you know, trying to add on or be in the comment section and being negative, then I just really think that you need to take some time off the internet and rethink how you consume content, how you participate on the internet. um it's just, you know, I'm purely here to make content. Now, I will say this. I will get like negative comments on well, not even negative, it's just dumb comments on a lot of my posts saying like, "Oh, that's not worth this. This is worth that's worth." I'm like, "Bro, I'm the expert here. Who are you to talk? Like, you're some dude who's like probably just come across my content, have never done anything in regards to Pokemon before." It's like, just stay quiet, pipe down. But that's it. Like other than that, I mean, it's very, very childish to participate in internet drama. I'd rather just collect the way I need to, and that's really it. That's how I want to do it. And outside of
Absolutely.
that, I don't have time to do that. Like if I'm at the gym, I'm at the gym. If I'm at a show, I'm at the show. If I'm making content, I'm making content. I'm keeping it very simple. If I'm with my friends, I'm worried about my friends. That's really it. That's all I care about.
Speaking of time, dude, I appreciate you giving me the time today and coming
Oh,
on.
of course, of
Talking to
course.
us.
I don't mind being here at all. I enjoy this. It's been a long time since I've done like a uh a live in such a long time on YouTube. So it's really good,
Fun,
really
right?
refreshing to come back on here. It's cool. I don't mind it. It's fun.
Guys, if you want to check out on Instagrams, where is like, what would you say is at your main focus right now is Instagram or?
Instagram and my Facebook page, so not Shivam. But anywhere you can find it, it's totally fine. The
I have
YouTube
the
channel,
Instagram linked. I'll link the
yeah,
Facebook afterwards too. But I don't know, man.
yeah,
We've gone almost 2 hours, so we could wrap things up. Like,
for sure.
I guess one, like, tell everyone where we can see you next. I know you said you have some trips coming up, and then like anything you
Um,
want to just say in closing, man. Anything you want to end with?
Nothing. Just again, guys, like collect. Don't overextend yourself. Don't feel like you have to buy something because someone else tells you to do so. Again, all these are my opinions here. If you can gain something from it and, you know, twist it up and do it in your own, excuse me, do it in your own fashion. Or if you feel like you can do whatever I do but better, go for it. Do it. Um, yeah, just I'll be at shows all year long. Sometimes it changes last minute, but you can follow along on my Instagram account. The YouTube channel is called It's Vaulted or Vaulted Podcast. So it has all my short forms on there, but most of my short forms drop immediately on the Instagram side first. And yeah, just at the end of the day, just leave the drama at home. Don't participate in it. Just remember why you're here. Remember that you came into this hobby to make friends and collect. And hopefully all of us can get big pockets and fat wallets and big bags from what we invest in. So
That's what we like to hear. What's
yeah,
the what is one card you're personally on the lookout for, or one box? What are you on the lookout for right now as your main search?
Nothing right now. I
Nothing.
have everything. I have everything that I could possibly want in my collection. I'm very content with it.
Wow.
The one thing
I've
that I
never
would
heard a
say,
collector say that.
yeah, I like let's say if I lost every opportunity to collect, I'd be content with what I have. And but if I had the opportunity, which I do, but I'm being very patient with it, is I want like a snap contest, Charmander, Coughing, or Articuno, or a Shikishi from James Turner of Shadowlugia. So that's really it. And yeah. Hey, cool. Yeah. I come off as arrogant, but rightfully so. I have time and experience in the hobby. I've earned my stripes in this space. Um and I've done it all. So yeah, I can be arrogant. I've earned that. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
What a great way to end things. I'll do my
Yeah.
best to get better reputable guests in the future, guys. Make sure to check
Yeah.
out Shiv, and appreciate you guys all being here, and we'll be
Yeah.
back here in new
I'm
ones soon.
totally not reputable. Everyone else that is bigger in the space that works with me, or content creators that work with me, they all think I'm not reputable either. Great guys.
Peace.